Hello, I am Mike.
Hello, I am Lily. Welcome to English Podcast Flow.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like my brain just won't quit. It's like a constant stream of thoughts, worries, and what-ifs that just keep swirling around. You know that feeling where you just can't seem to shut off your mind, and it leaves you feeling exhausted and stressed?
It's so relatable. Overthinking is something we all experience from time to time. It's part of being human, but it can definitely be overwhelming when those thoughts start to spiral out of control. The good news is that we don't have to be at the mercy of our overactive minds. It appears that there are lots of practical strategies we can use to calm the mental chatter and find some peace.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're not aiming to eliminate overthinking entirely, right? It's more about learning to manage it, kind of like taming a wild animal, maybe.
That's a great analogy. We're not trying to silence our thoughts completely. That's probably impossible and maybe not even desirable. Instead, think of it as learning to train your mind, like teaching a puppy some basic commands. You're not going to stop the puppy from thinking or having energy, but you can teach it to channel that energy in a more productive way.
So how do we start taming this thought monster, as I like to call it? Where do we even begin?
Well, one of the most fundamental approaches is to focus on what you can actually control. Studies show that a lot of our overthinking energy gets wasted on things that are completely outside of our sphere of influence, like dwelling on past mistakes or worrying about things that might happen in the future. It's like trying to control the weather. It's just not going to happen.
I get that. It's so easy to get caught up in those what ifs and should have done. Like, if only I had said this, or what if this happens? But how do we actually shift our focus to the things we can control when it feels like our minds are constantly pulling us in other directions?
A practical strategy that I find helpful is to literally schedule time for worrying. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but setting aside a specific block of time each day, even just 15 minutes to think about your concerns, can actually help prevent them from spiraling out of control throughout the day.
Wait, so you're saying we should actually set a timer for worrying? I'm not sure I understand how that would help. Wouldn't that just give those worries more power?
It's not about giving them more power, it's about creating boundaries. It's like giving those worries a designated space to exist so they don't take over your entire mental landscape. Think of it like this. If you had a puppy that was constantly nipping at your heels, you wouldn't just let it run wild all the time. You would create a designated play area for it, right? This is similar. You're giving your worries a specific time and space to come out, and then when the timer goes off, you consciously shift your attention to something else.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like we're training our minds to compartmentalize those worries and not let them dominate every waking moment. So what about when those worries pop up outside of the designated worry time? How do we deal with them then?
That's where the practice comes in. It takes time and consistency to train your mind to stay within those boundaries. When those thoughts creep in outside of your worry time, gently acknowledge them. Remind yourself that you'll have time to address them later, and then redirect your attention to whatever you were doing.
This leads perfectly into the next strategy we wanted to discuss: using action as an antidote to overthinking. Studies show that sometimes the best way to break free from that mental loop is to simply do something, anything, to shift your energy and perspective. It's like when you're feeling stuck in a rut sometimes, all it takes is a little bit of movement to get you going again.
Exactly. It appears that taking action, even if it's something small, can help interrupt those repetitive thought patterns and create a sense of momentum. For example, if you've been agonizing over which book to read, just pick one and start reading. Or if you've been putting off a task because it feels overwhelming, break it down into smaller steps and just tackle the first one.
I love that. It's like instead of getting stuck in that endless loop of analyzing and planning, we can actually start making progress, which can help us feel more in control and less overwhelmed. But what if we're struggling to figure out what action to take? Sometimes the overthinking makes it hard to even choose a starting point.
That's where a little bit of self-reflection can be helpful. Ask yourself, what's one small step I can take right now to move forward? It doesn't have to be perfect or groundbreaking. It just needs to be something that gets you unstuck.
Okay, that makes sense. And you know what else helps me get unstuck from overthinking? Writing things down. It's like I can literally get those thoughts out of my head and onto the paper, which frees up so much mental space.
It's such a classic strategy, but for good reason. Studies show that journaling is incredibly powerful for taming an overthinking mind. It's like you're giving those thoughts a physical form, which can make them feel less overwhelming. Plus, the act of writing itself can be incredibly therapeutic.
I totally agree. For me, journaling before bed is a game changer. It's like I can clear out all the mental tabs I have open from the day and actually relax and get a good night's sleep. So we've talked about focusing on what we can control, scheduling worry time, using action as an antidote, and writing things down. What's next on our list of overthinking busting strategies?
Well, let's talk about something that's near and dear to my heart: joy breaks. It appears that engaging in activities that bring you genuine joy is absolutely essential for combating overthinking. It's like hitting the pause button on your worries and allowing yourself to simply be present in the moment, enjoying something you love.
I love that. I'm a huge believer in incorporating more fun and play into our lives, especially when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. It's so easy to get caught up in the seriousness of life and forget to make time for the things that light us up. But how do we actually make time for joy breaks when it feels like there are a million other things demanding our attention?
It's about making a conscious choice to prioritize your well-being. It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first before assisting others. If you're constantly running on empty, you won't be able to show up fully for yourself or for anyone else. So schedule those joy breaks into your day just like you would any other important appointment. Even if it's just 15 minutes to listen to your favorite music, read a chapter in a captivating book, or call a friend for a quick chat, those little moments of joy can make a big difference in your overall well-being.
So it's not about finding hours of free time. It's about finding those little pockets of joy throughout the day.
Huh.
I like that. It feels much more manageable. And you know what else I find helps me shift out of that overthinking mode? Focusing on my breath. Like when I'm feeling really anxious or overwhelmed, if I could just take a few deep breaths, it helps me to calm down and feel more centered.
The breath is such a powerful tool. It's incredible how something so simple can have such a profound impact on our mental and physical state. When we're caught in a cycle of overthinking, our breathing often becomes shallow and rapid, which actually feeds into the anxiety. But by consciously slowing down and deepening our breath, we can send a signal to our body and mind to relax and calm down.
So how do we actually use our breath to combat overthinking? Do you have any specific breathing exercises you recommend?
One of my favorites is the 4-4-4 breath. It's incredibly simple and you can do it anywhere, anytime. You simply inhale deeply through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath gently for another count of 4, and then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 4. You can repeat this cycle for a few minutes or even longer if you find it helpful.
I'm feeling more relaxed just thinking about it. And I think this leads beautifully into the concept of mindfulness, which is all about cultivating an awareness of the present moment without judgment. It's like instead of getting swept away by the current of our thoughts, we can learn to anchor ourselves in the here and now.
Exactly. Mindfulness is an incredibly valuable practice for managing overthinking. When we're overthinking, we're often lost in thoughts about the past or anxieties about the future, but by gently guiding our attention back to the present moment, we can interrupt those thought patterns and find a sense of peace.
So how do we actually practice mindfulness? Is it all about meditation, or are there other ways to cultivate that present moment awareness?
Meditation is definitely one way to practice mindfulness, but it's not the only way. You can also incorporate mindfulness into everyday activities. For example, when you're eating, really pay attention to the taste, texture, and aroma of the food. When you're walking, notice the sensation of your feet on the ground and the feeling of the air on your skin. Even when you're doing something as mundane as washing dishes, you can bring your full attention to the task at hand and notice the sensations of the warm water and the soapy bubbles.
It's like bringing that awareness to the ordinary moments of our lives and finding a sense of peace in the simplicity of those moments. And speaking of finding peace and support, let's talk about the importance of sharing the load. Sometimes when we're stuck in our own heads, it can be incredibly helpful to talk to someone we trust about what we're going through.
It appears that talking to someone, whether it's a friend, family member, therapist, or even a supportive online community, can be so beneficial when you're struggling with overthinking. Sometimes just voicing your concerns out loud can help you gain perspective and realize that you're not alone in your struggles.
It's like that saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. And even if the person you're talking to doesn't have any magical solutions, sometimes just having someone listen and offer a different viewpoint can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And sometimes simply the act of expressing your thoughts and feelings out loud can help you process them more effectively. It's like you're releasing some of that pent-up energy and creating space for clarity and calm.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground already, focusing on what we can control. Scheduling worry time, taking action, journaling joy breaks breathwork mindfulness, and sharing the load. I'm already feeling more equipped to handle my own overthinking tendencies. But before we move on to the next batch of strategies, are there any key takeaways you want to highlight for our listeners?
It appears that one of the most important things to remember is that managing overthinking is an ongoing process. It's not about achieving some perfect state of mental stillness. It's about developing a toolkit of strategies that you can use to navigate those challenging moments. And be patient with yourself. It takes time and practice to train your mind to respond differently to those habitual thought patterns.
That's such a great reminder. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And we're going to continue exploring more strategies and tips in the next part of this podcast, so stay tuned.
We'll be right back with more overthinking busting techniques after a short break. Welcome back, everyone. We're diving right back into our exploration of practical strategies to help you stop overthinking.
That's right, we're picking up where we left off, and in this part of the episode, we're going to get even more specific, sharing real-world examples and actionable tips you can start using today to tame those overthinking tendencies.
I'm excited to share these practical tips with you. It's one thing to understand the concepts, but it's another thing to actually put them into practice in our daily lives.
Exactly. So let's revisit the idea of focusing on what you can control. This is such a fundamental principle for managing overthinking. But it can be tricky to implement when we're feeling overwhelmed or anxious.
It is tricky because our minds tend to gravitate toward the things we can't control. Especially when we're feeling stressed or uncertain, it's like our brains are wired to scan for potential threats and problems, which can lead us down a rabbit hole of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios.
Right. It's like that primal fight-or-flight response kicking in. But how do we break out of that pattern and shift our focus to what we can actually influence when it feels like our minds are constantly pulling us in a million different directions?
Well, one helpful technique is to pause and ask yourself a simple question. Is this something I have direct control over right now? The answer is no, then gently acknowledge that thought and redirect your attention to something you can actually do something about.
So it's about recognizing that we don't have to engage with every thought that pops into our heads. We can choose to let go of the things we can't control and focus our energy on the things we can.
Exactly. And it's not about suppressing those thoughts or pretending they don't exist. It's more about acknowledging them without getting caught up in them.
Can you give us an example of what that might look like in a real-life situation?
Absolutely. Let's say you're lying awake at night, worrying about an upcoming presentation at work. Your mind starts racing, thinking about all the things that could go wrong. What if you forget your lines? What if the audience isn't engaged? What if the technology fails? It's so easy to get caught up in that spiral of anxiety.
Oh, I've been there so many times. It's like my mind turns into a movie projector playing out all the worst-case scenarios on repeat.
Exactly. But in that moment, instead of fueling those anxieties, you can pause and ask yourself, is there anything I can do about these worries right now at 2 a.m.? And the answer is probably no. The presentation isn't happening right now. You can't control whether the technology will work perfectly or whether the audience will love your every word.
So what can you do in that moment when you're lying in bed with all those anxious thoughts swirling around in your head?
Instead of feeding those worries, you can gently redirect your focus to something you can control in that moment, like your breath. You could practice a few minutes of deep breathing or listen to a calming meditation to help you relax and ease back into sleep.
That's a great reminder. It's so easy to forget that we have the power to choose where we direct our attention. And sometimes the simplest act of shifting our focus can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And speaking of tools and techniques, let's talk about the power of time boxing our worries, which we touched on earlier. This strategy can be incredibly helpful for preventing those thoughts from taking over our entire day.
I'm intrigued by this idea of time boxing our worries. It's like we're giving those anxieties a designated time slot rather than letting them run wild throughout the day.
Precisely. So let's say you're feeling stressed about a disagreement you had with a friend or family member. Instead of letting those thoughts consume you throughout the day, you can consciously decide, okay, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes this afternoon to think about this situation, process my emotions, and try to come up with a solution.
It's like creating a container for those worries, a specific time and space where they're allowed to exist without taking over our entire mental and emotional landscape.
Exactly. And when that 15 minutes is up, you make a conscious effort to move on. You can set a timer to help you stay accountable, and when the timer goes off, you gently redirect your attention to something else. Whether it's focusing on a work task, reading a book, or engaging in a hobby, the key is to shift your mental gears.
I love that. It's like we're setting boundaries for our worries and treating our minds to stay within those limits. And It reminds us that we don't have to be at the mercy of our thoughts. We can choose to engage with them when it's appropriate and let them go when it's not.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding that balance between acknowledging our thoughts and feelings without letting them control us.
Okay, so we talked about controlling our focus and time boxing our worries. Now let's dive into the idea of action as an antidote to overthinking. This is one of the most empowering strategies because it helps us move from feeling stuck and helpless to taking charge of our thoughts and emotions.
I completely agree. Sometimes the best way to break free from overthinking is to simply take a step forward, even if it's a small one. It appears that action can help interrupt those repetitive thought patterns and create a sense of momentum, which can be incredibly empowering.
It's like when you're feeling overwhelmed by a big project or a long to-do list. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just pick one task, any task, and start working on it.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be the most important or urgent item on your list. It just needs to be something you can take action on right away, something that gets you moving and breaks through that inertia.
Can you give us an example of how this might look in a real-world situation?
Of course. Let's say you're feeling paralyzed by a long to-do list. You keep thinking about all the tasks you need to complete, and it feels overwhelming because you don't know where to start. You might start feeling anxious or stressed, and that can lead to even more overthinking.
Oh, I feel that one deep in my soul. It's like my brain freezes up when I'm faced with too many options, and I end up procrastinating on everything because I don't know where to begin.
In those moments, instead of getting stuck in analysis paralysis, the key is to pick one task, any task, and just start working on it. It doesn't have to be perfect or groundbreaking. It just needs to be something you can take action on right away, something that gets you moving and builds momentum.
So it's about breaking down that big, overwhelming goal into smaller, more manageable steps and focusing on taking that first step.
Exactly. And often, once you get started on that first task, you'll find that the momentum carries you forward, and the rest of the to-do list feels less daunting. It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
It's amazing how much power there is in that first step. And sometimes it's all it takes to shift out of that overthinking mode and into a more productive and empowered mindset.
And speaking of shifting our mindset, let's revisit the power of journaling. I'm a huge advocate for this strategy because it's such a simple yet effective way to process our thoughts and emotions and gain clarity on what's going on inside our heads.
I'm a big fan of journaling too. It's like having a private conversation with yourself on paper, a safe space to explore your thoughts and feelings without judgment or censorship.
It appears that journaling can be incredibly beneficial for our mental health. It allows us to express ourselves freely without fear of judgment, and it can help us gain a deeper understanding of our own thoughts and behaviors.
And there are so many different ways to approach journaling. You can write freely about whatever comes to mind, stream of consciousness style, or you can use prompts to guide your writing. You can focus on gratitude, challenges, goals, or simply reflect on your day. It's all about finding what works best for you and what helps you feel most connected to yourself.
Exactly. And I think one of the keys to successful journaling is to make it a regular habit, whether it's writing for 5 minutes every morning or setting aside a longer block of time once a week. Consistency is key.
It's like any other habit. The more you do it, the more natural and effortless it becomes. And over time, you may start to notice patterns in your thinking or areas where you tend to get stuck, which can be incredibly valuable insights.
It's like journaling gives us a mirror to reflect on our own thoughts and behaviors, and that self-awareness can be a powerful tool for growth and change.
Okay, let's move on to a strategy that always brings a smile to my face. Joy breaks. I'm a firm believer in the power of incorporating more fun and play into our lives, especially when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
I couldn't agree more. Engaging in activities we genuinely enjoy is essential for our well-being. It's like hitting the reset button on our minds and allowing ourselves to recharge and reconnect with what brings us joy.
And it doesn't have to be anything grand or time-consuming. It could be as simple as taking a few minutes to listen to your favorite song, reading a chapter in a captivating book, or calling a friend for a quick chat.
Absolutely. The key is to choose activities that genuinely light you up and make you feel good. And it's important to schedule these joy breaks into your day just like you would any other important appointment.
Because, let's be honest, self-care often gets pushed to the bottom of the to-do list when we're feeling stressed. But prioritizing these moments of joy can make a huge difference in our overall well-being.
Exactly. It's about making a conscious choice to nourish ourselves and fill our cups so we have the energy and resilience to handle whatever challenges come our way.
And speaking of nourishing ourselves, let's talk about the breath. I love how we can access this incredible tool for calming and regulating our nervous system anytime, anywhere.
It's truly amazing how such a simple act can have such profound effects on our mental and physical state. And the best part is, it's always available to us. We don't need any special equipment or training.
So can you remind us of that 4-4-4 breathing exercise you mentioned earlier?
Of course, it's one of my favorites because it's so simple and effective. You start by finding a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down. Close your eyes if you'd like. Then inhale deeply through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath gently for another count of 4. And finally, exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 4.
I'm feeling more relaxed just visualizing that. It sounds so simple, yet so powerful.
And you can repeat this cycle for as long as you need to. It's a great way to interrupt those racing thoughts and bring a sense of calm to your body and mind.
And I think it's a perfect segue into our next strategy, which is all about cultivating present moment awareness or mindfulness.
Mindfulness is such a powerful practice for managing overthinking. It's about training our minds to become more aware of the present moment without judgment. It's about noticing our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without getting swept away by them.
It's like learning to become the observer of our own minds rather than the captive audience.
Exactly. And there are many different ways to practice mindfulness. You can try formal meditation techniques, or you can incorporate mindfulness into everyday activities like eating, walking, or even washing dishes.
I love that. It's about bringing that awareness to the ordinary moments of our lives and finding a sense of peace and presence in the midst of the everyday chaos.
Absolutely. And the more we practice, the more naturally it will come. We'll start to notice when our minds are wandering, and we'll be able to gently guide our attention back to the present.
Okay, let's shift gears now and talk about the importance of seeking support when we're struggling with overthinking. I know it can be hard to reach out for help, especially when we're feeling vulnerable or ashamed, but it can make such a difference in our journey.
It appears that talking to someone we trust can provide a sense of relief and perspective. It allows us to share our burdens and receive support and understanding. It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles and that other people care about us.
It's like that saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. And sometimes it's even more than halved, because when we share our struggles with someone who cares about us, we often receive wisdom, encouragement, and support that we wouldn't have been able to access on our own.
And it doesn't have to be a therapist or counselor, although those are certainly valuable resources. It could be a friend, family member, mentor, or even a supportive online community. The key is to find someone who listens without judgment and offers empathy and encouragement.
And I think it's important to remember that seeking support is a sign of strength, not weakness. It takes courage to admit that we need help and to reach out for it.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing our own limits and seeking the support we need to thrive.
Okay, we're nearing the end of part 2 of this episode, and I want to make sure we touch on our final 2 strategies before we wrap up.
Sounds good. Let's talk about movement as medicine.
I am such a believer in the power of physical activity to improve not just our physical health, but our mental well-being too.
Studies show that exercise has numerous benefits for the brain. It releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects, it reduces stress hormones, and it improves sleep quality.
And it doesn't have to be strenuous or time-consuming. Even a short walk in nature or a few minutes of stretching can make a difference in how we feel.
Absolutely. The key is to find activities you enjoy and that fit into your lifestyle. And consistency is key, as with any habit.
Okay, and last but certainly not least, let's revisit the idea of accepting the thought stream. This one can be a bit tricky, but it's so powerful.
It's about recognizing that thoughts are just thoughts. They're not facts. They're not necessarily true or accurate. They're simply mental events that come and go like clouds passing through the sky.
And I think a helpful analogy is to imagine our thoughts as leaves floating down a stream. We can observe them without getting caught up in them. We don't have to grab onto every leaf that drifts by. We can simply let them flow on by.
Exactly. We can let them float on by without judgment or resistance.
And I think this strategy ties back to the idea of mindfulness that we talked about earlier. It's about developing that observer perspective on our own thoughts, noticing them without getting entangled in their stories.
Precisely. And with practice, we can learn to detach from our thoughts and not let them control our emotions or behaviors.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.